Discover the heartwarming moment when 5-year-old changed a mail-order bride's life forever. In a small Midwestern town, where the wind whispered tales of dreams and hope, a storm raged one evening. Raindrops danced against the windows as whispers filled the air. A mysterious woman, a mail-order bride named Elena, arrived seeking refuge from a past she longed to forget. The townspeople were smiles on the surface, nodding in welcome but murmuring uncertainty beneath. Yet, in the heart of this community, there lived an innocent soul named Jack, a humble 5-year-old boy with messy blonde hair and bright, inquisitive eyes, held dreams of adventure in his tiny heart. His single mother, Sarah, worked tirelessly, pouring her soul into 2 jobs just to keep their modest home afloat. Every evening, as Jack's small hands helped set the table for dinner, he eyed the world beyond their front porch with wide-eyed wonder. He imagined dragons, knights, and friendships that would last forever. He had no idea that soon, a friendship would bloom in the most unexpected way. One sunny afternoon, curiosity tugged at Jack's heart, leading him to the local park. He spotted Elena sitting alone on a weathered bench, her gaze lost in the dance of the ducks gliding across the pond. Something about her sadness pierced through his youthful innocence. Jack approached, clutching a half-eaten ice cream cone. "Hi. Do you want some?" he asked, offering her the treat with a smile that could melt the coldest heart. Elena looked up, surprised. No one had offered her kindness in a long time. As they shared ice cream and laughter, feeding the quacking ducks, something magical happened. It marked the first time Elena felt seen, truly seen, in a long while. Jack's unpretentious joy sparked hope in her heart. "Thank you, little friend," she whispered softly, her eyes glimmering with unshed tears. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let us continue. As the town prepared for its yearly fair, excitement mixed with anxiety. Jack's heart raced at the thought of fun rides, cotton candy, and games. But as he and Elena walked among the smiling crowd, a group of townspeople muttered harsh words under their breath. Jack watched, his heart sinking, torn between defending his friend and listening to his mother's warnings about strangers. Then it happened. The words flew like arrows, sharp and cutting. But Jack did not flinch. With bright eyes that shone with determination, he raised his voice, "She's my friend." The crowd fell silent, shock rippling through the air. That one innocent declaration stirred something deep within the townspeople, awakening them from their slumber of prejudice. Elena felt a glimmer of hope, but shadows loomed. Would Jack's courage ripple into a change, or would fear win? As the fair lights twinkled in the dusk, the town held its breath, grappling with uncomfortable truths. Could Jack's unwavering belief in love and friendship pierce through the thick veil of bias? As he stood tall, hand in hand with Elena, the atmosphere thick with anticipation, one thing was certain: this was just the beginning. Would their bond endure the storm and light the path toward acceptance? The fair was alive with laughter and cheer, yet Elena felt a heaviness in her heart. Weaving through the crowd, Jack clutched her hand like a lifeline. The air smelled sweet, a mix of roasted peanuts and sugary funnel cakes, but all she could focus on was the way people glanced at her. Some faces morphed from confusion to curiosity, while others mirrored a determination to remain distant. Jack beamed, leading her toward the Ferris wheel. "Look! We have to ride that." His excitement was contagious, and Elena couldn't help but smile as he tugged her along. She knew this day was meant to be magical. After all, fair days were supposed to be about freedom and joy. But the whispers that hung in the air were like shadows chasing them. "Can we?" Jack's eyes sparkled with pure innocence. Before she could answer, he ran ahead, his little feet pounding against the pavement. Elena hesitated momentarily, feeling a swell of protectiveness mixed with doubt. Okay. Let us ride. She finally called out, chasing after him. As they climbed into the car, Jack's laughter rang out, vibrant and true. For that fleeting moment, they were suspended high above the ground, surrounded by twinkling lights and the symphony of fair sounds. Look at everything! He exclaimed, pointing at the vibrant displays below. I see it. Elena laughed, a sound that had been a stranger to her lately. She let the moment wash over her, savoring the slight breeze that whipped through her hair. Maybe, just maybe, things would change. Maybe hearts could open, but as they came down, reality set in again. The stares returned, some faces sullen and disapproving. For Jack, it was as if a shadow passed over his joy. He watched them frown and whisper, his small frame suddenly seeming so vulnerable. What's wrong? He asked, worry wrinkling his forehead. They just don't understand, she whispered back, knowing those words weren't just for him. They were a feeble attempt to calm the storm brewing in her own heart. Then came a shout, piercing through the air like a storm warning. Get away from her, kid! The voice belonged to a burly man, arms crossed against his chest, a fierce scowl plastered on his face. Jack stiffened, instinctively stepping closer to Elena. No. Yes, my friend. His small voice rang out, unwavering and brave. Elena's heart swelled and broke at once. Fear clawed at her throat, the weight of their stares heavy against her chest. She wanted to scream, to tell Jack it was okay to be afraid. But she couldn't. Not when he was showing such courage. The man took a step forward, chest puffed out. We don't want your kind here. Jack took a deep breath, his little hands balled into fists. But everyone deserves a friend. Even Elena. Silence fell, heavy and palpable, suffocating yet filled with an aching sort of hope. What would happen next? Would Jack's innocent words be enough to bridge the hatred that shrouded this small town? The tension crackled in the air like electricity, as the townspeople watched, either frozen in fear or stirred by the truth they heard. In that fragile moment, with hearts pounding and the air thick with uncertainty, Elena realized just how much was at stake. She stood tall, squeezing Jack's hand tighter. She deserves a chance, she said, her voice steady. We all do. As eyes turned to her, a mix of disbelief and curiosity swirled, questions echoed that remained unspoken. Could this young boy's heart change a community? Could Elena find a home in a place that felt so unwelcoming? With every heartbeat, she waited for the answer to unfold. The silence lingered, thick as the tension in the air. Elena felt her heart race, the weight of those watching pressing down on her. She glanced at Jack, whose little face held nothing but determination. This innocent boy was standing up, not just for her, but for something deeper than either of them understood. Go on, run along home, the man said, dismissive and harsh, his voice echoing across the fairground like a gunshot. Some in the crowd nodded vigorously, others shifted uncomfortably, caught between judgment and compassion. But Jack remained unwavering. No. We won't go until you let her stay. His voice was a mixture of youth and pure conviction, the kind that could level mountains. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Why are you so brave? She whispered, leaning down to meet his gaze. Jack shrugged, a small frown marking his forehead. Because friendship is important. I want to help you. Elena's heart cracked open, a flood of warmth spreading through her. This small boy had taken the burden she carried and turned it into something pure. It made her heart ache, the juxtaposition of his innocence against the harshness of the world around them. The burly man looked taken aback, his scowl faltering as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some began to frown at him, arms crossing as they weighed their beliefs against Jack's words. He was just a child, but within him, there was a fierce power that made the adults squirm. Kids shouldn't talk about things they don't know, the man grumbled, but the threat in his tone was deflating. Elena took a deep breath, reaching deeper within herself. Jack's right. I just wanted a chance. An opportunity to be part of something. Her voice echoed with vulnerability, yet there was a fire igniting within her. She could feel it, the spark connecting the community, pushing against a wall that had held for far too long. Jack turned and shouted out to the crowd. Yes, my friend. Friends stick together. Jack's words hung in the air, catching attention like soft fireworks. Faces shifted, softened. Eyes glimmered with a mix of uncertainty and an urge to break free from hate. It was a small shift, but a shift nonetheless. Elena felt hope swell within her. Perhaps there was room for compassion after all. Just as the sun breaks through heavy clouds, the murmurs of support began to grow. Yes, right, someone finally spoke up from the crowd, a familiar face she recognized. We can't just turn away from someone who needs us. She locked eyes with the supporter, a middle-aged woman whose kindness melted some of the barriers around them. That woman's nod emboldened more. Gradually, a few more began to stand beside her, reinforcing the fragile trust that was beginning to sprout. Give us a chance. Just one chance. Elena urged the crowd, her voice trembling but echoing the strength within her. She took a step forward. Behind her, Jack stood proudly, fists at his side, a beacon of bravery against the resistance. Maybe, someone whispered cautiously. Maybe it's time to change things. Elena felt her breath hitch as more people began to shift and murmur in agreement. The embers of defiance were kindling into a flame of hope. Perhaps it was not just Jack's words but their collective yearning for understanding that could ignite the change this town so desperately needed, but just as the air crackled with possibility, the burly man took a step back, fists unclenching, realizing the tide was turning against him. You think this is right? He spat, narrowing his eyes. You think we should welcome her? Elena's heart raced. This was a turning point, and she felt the weight of anticipation in her chest. It starts with acceptance. It starts with us believing we can be better. Would they? Would this town truly embrace change? She held her breath, feeling all eyes on her, wondering if Jack had sparked not just hope, but a path towards something more profound. The moment was electric, alive, and filled with uncertainty. With every heart in the crowd held captive, the question loomed: what would happen next? Elena's heart pounded as she scanned the crowd, searching for any sign of agreement, any flicker of kindness. Jack held her hand tightly, grounding her even as a swirl of doubt threatened to pull her under. The air was heavy with anticipation, and she felt the weight of every gaze resting upon her. Would they really listen? She stepped forward, using every ounce of courage she had. I'm here because I want to be part of this community. I want to work hard and contribute. All I ask for is a chance to show you that I'm more than what you see, she said, her voice steady but her insides quaking. The burly man's expression twisted in anger. A chance? You think you can just waltz in here and be accepted? This isn't some happy fairy tale. A woman from the crowd raised her hand. We don't all think that way. She called out, her voice sharp and brave. People have different stories. We're not as narrow-minded as you think. More murmurs followed, building a current of voices that edged towards defiance. Elena felt a tremor of hope ignite anew. Maybe they were changing their minds after all. Jack squeezed her hand again and shouted, we just want to be friends. His innocence, the plain truth of his words, seemed to cut through the anger in those watching. Laughter bubbled from somewhere in the crowd. A man chuckled, my 4-year-old son has more sense than some grown-ups I know. That lightness began to spread, melting the tension in the air. People exchanged glances, nodding slowly, the barriers of discomfort beginning to crumble in the face of bravery. Maybe it's time we took a closer look at our neighbors, another voice chimed in. What truly defines us if not our willingness to accept one another? Elena's heart soared. She turned, scanning the faces of those gathered, feeling a community start to form right before her. Each nod and smile flickered like sparks in a dark room, lighting up the possibility of change. I want to be here with you. To share my heart and my life, Elena continued, passion blazing in her chest. But I need you to see me, to understand that we can create something beautiful together. The burly man shifted uncomfortably, he seemed to feel the tide turning beneath his feet. Why should we trust her? He barked, though the fierceness in his tone was starting to crack. Because we all deserve a chance, someone said quietly from the back, and the sincerity of the statement hit Elena like a warm breeze, lifting her spirits even higher. Jack let go of her hand and stepped toward the man. You should give her a chance, just like the others gave you a chance. A focused silence fell over the crowd. Elena's breath caught. Jack had turned the entire confrontation on its head. He was so small and yet so wise, speaking the truth of their moment with a clarity that only the pure of heart can possess. Suddenly, the burly man began to look less like a monster and more like a floundering person, struggling against the weight of his own prejudices. It's not that simple, he muttered, almost defeated. Elena took a step closer, her heart pounding louder than ever. It is simple, she said softly, her voice almost tender. Compassion, understanding, these are what build us stronger. Let us start now. The man's defenses wavered, the hardened lines of his face softening just a fraction. A flicker of conflict danced in his eyes, caught between the past and potential for a different future. As Elena stood, hope radiating from her like the sun, she felt the moment stretch, filled with extreme potential. What will you choose? In that instant, they all held their breath, waiting, hungering for resolution, thirsting for change. Jack's courage had opened a door, but would they step through it together? And so the question hung in the air, vibrant and alive: could they transform their collective fear into something beautiful, or would the bitter anchor of the past weigh them down? The burly man shifted on his feet, his eyes darting around as if searching for answers amid the faces surrounding him. It was a moment suspended in time, and all Elena could feel was the suffocating weight of unspoken words and stubborn beliefs. The crowd, once hostile, now seemed to vibrate with a mix of uncertainty and hope. Elena took a breath, feeling the energy crackle like static in the air. What if I'm not here to take something from you? She continued. What if I'm here to give? To share in life with you all, in whatever way I can. There were whispers now, rippling through the crowd like the sound of leaves rustling in the wind. Some nodded, others looked conflicted. Jack, still standing tall despite the giant before him, took a step back toward Elena, his small frame standing firm beside her. Yeah. We can be a team. He chimed, his little voice cutting through the tension like a ray of sunlight after a storm. The laughter seemed infectious, and for a moment, even the burly man twitched at the corners of his mouth. He quickly concealed it, but Elena saw it. Hope flared in her chest again. Look, Elena said, her voice rising gently yet firmly. I understand fear. We've all been afraid. But I promise to work hard, to learn about this community and contribute however I can. Will you allow me to show you? The man's gaze dropped to the ground, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through his tough exterior. You say you want a chance, he started, but words faltered in his throat. But it's not just me, you think everyone's gonna feel the same? One by one, the faces began to turn. The warmth of Jack's innocence seeped into their hearts, and Elena could see layers of complexity in the crowd's expressions. There were nods of curiosity, some whispered conversations, and a few determined gazes. A young woman stepped forward. I think it's time we recognize that the stories we tell ourselves can be rewritten, she asserted, her tone carrying strength and clarity. We've all made choices based on fear, but what if we chose compassion instead? The words danced through the crowd, settling into the hearts of many, igniting a spark. Elena's eyes met Jack's, and he smiled, a beam of pure light reflecting back at her. He believed in them. He believed in change. Maybe it's time we take a chance, someone else added, a bit more timidly, but there was a growing chorus of agreement. Elena felt her throat tighten with emotion. This was it, this was the shift she had dared to hope for. Suddenly, the burly man stepped forward, his face pale yet resolute. Fine, he growled, but she could hear the tremor of uncertainty in his voice. I'll give you a chance, just don't make me regret it. Cheers erupted instantly from the crowd, but Elena felt something deeper, a sigh of reconnaissance, an understanding that they had all stepped into a new realm together, a place of possibility. The heaviness in the air began to thin, like the breaking of dawn. "Thank you," Elena said, her voice ringing with genuine gratitude, heart swelling. "That's all I'm asking for. Together, we can build something that lasts, we can make our community stronger." But just as she felt the tide of faith surging forward, a sharp voice sliced through the moment. "And what about the others like you? Are we supposed to bring them all in?" Elena froze, the weight of the question crashing down. She had hoped for acceptance, but now ambiguity loomed over her once bright dream. The crowd fell silent again, eyes shifting back to her in this new moment of uncertainty. What would she say? Could she even begin to address the fears that would undoubtedly rise? The air crackled once more with tension, and as they waited for her response, Elena realized that this was just the beginning. Would the journey of acceptance truly continue, or would they fall back into the shadows of their old fears? She felt the eyes upon her, the expectation, the weight of the moment crashing all around. Could she weave through the intricate tapestry of opinions and fears, or would this new thread begin to unravel before it had a chance to strengthen their bond? This time, the question became hers to answer, and the whole community held its breath, ready for the truth that could either unite them or tear them apart. Elena's heart pounded in her chest as she felt the weight of the world settle on her shoulders. She scanned the crowd, trying to read the faces that had once been filled with scorn. Now there was curiosity, yes, but also doubt. The tension in the air was palpable, as if every person present was holding their breath, waiting for her to say something profound. "What about the others?" she echoed softly, the question lingering in the air as the crowd shifted uncomfortably. She took a step forward, determined to embrace the discomfort instead of shying away. "I understand your concern, truly. But we have to remember that every one of us has a story worth hearing, and that's what we need to focus on." There it was again, that flicker of hope. It wasn't a blanket answer, but it was an invitation. An invitation to listen, to connect. Elena gestured toward Jack, who was watching her with wide, trusting eyes. "Look at Jack here. He doesn't see color, he doesn't see fear. He sees a friend." She felt her voice tremble slightly as she continued, "If we can all be more like him, if we can approach each other with open hearts, then maybe we can build something crazy beautiful together." The crowd began to murmur, faces shifting as the gravity of her words began to sink in. Some looked unsure, but others showed hints of recognition, perhaps understanding how their own fears had held them back for far too long. "Every other that you're scared of can be another opportunity to learn, to grow, to love," Elena pressed on, her voice gaining strength. "Each person brings something valuable to this community. It's not about their past, it's about the future we can create together, if we choose to welcome them." The burly man's brow furrowed as he processed her words. "And what if they come in with their old problems? What if they can't be trusted?" His voice was rough, but the doubt in it spoke of a heart that had witnessed too much pain. "Then that's where we come in." Jack jumped in, his youthful exuberance shining through. "We help them. Like superheroes." His enthusiasm made several people chuckle, but Elena could see that his innocence was breaking some barriers. "Exactly." She seized the moment. "We're all a part of this community, it's on us to support one another, to lift each other up. That's how we heal. Trust grows when we invest time and empathy." The crowd began to shift, some nodding along while others appeared deep in thought. She felt the tide beginning to turn in her favor, even if it was just the smallest of victories. Among the sea of faces, something had awakened. "What's stopping us from trying?" A voice broke the silence, timid at first but growing louder with determination. "If we've been living in fear all this time, maybe it's time we dared to change that." A ripple of agreement surged through the crowd, and with it came the realization that change was not easy, nor was it universally embraced. Yet, here was a place to start. Elena could see it reflected in their faces, an unspoken commitment to step forward together. As the crowd buzzed with newfound energy and cautious hope, Elena knew they were on the edge of something powerful. Whether they would act on that initial flicker of belief was yet to be seen. But just then, as the conversation began to flow and the barriers seemed to dissolve, a sudden shout rang out from the back. "What about the risks? Can we really trust them?" Elena's heart sank for a moment. The question loomed large, threatening to pull them back into the shadows. Yet in that split-second pause, she realized that she had the chance to be that bridge between doubt and possibility. With determination flooding her veins, she took a deep breath. Looking into the eyes of those gathered, she prepared to respond. There was no denying the challenge ahead. Could she convince them that risk should not outweigh the potential for a beautiful transformation? As she began to speak, the weight of the moment felt heavier than ever. Could she turn their fears into a chance for unity? Would she be the spark that ignited lasting change, or would she falter under the weight of their uncertainty? The eyes of the community were fixed on her, waiting. Elena could feel their hope, their doubt, and their desire for progress. The moment of truth was approaching. Elena squared her shoulders and let out a shaky breath. The silence felt like a thick fog settling around her. For a brief moment, all she wanted was to retreat, to escape the pressure of their expectations. But then she reminded herself of Jack and the warmth in his eyes, of the hope that flickered in those who had begun to lean in closer. "Risk is part of being human," she began, her voice steadying. "Every day we wake up and face the unknown. The true question isn't whether we will find fear, but how we choose to respond to it." She paused, connecting with the faces around her, the fosters of change and resistance alike, the living tapestry of her community. We can choose to shut ourselves away, to hold on to our fear like it's a shield, but what does that get us? A teenager raised an eyebrow. Safety. Order. There was a faint hint of challenge in his tone. "Sure," Elena replied, her eyes shimmering with conviction. "But what about joy? What about connection? Isn't that worth a little risk? Look around you. We have a chance right now to foster understanding instead of fear. The kind of safety we're looking for comes from trust, real trust that can only grow when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable." A murmur coursed through the crowd, uncertainty mingled with contemplation. The burly man from before still wore a frown, arms crossed over his chest, but the fire of contemplation glinted in his eyes, revealing an undercurrent of receptiveness. "What if we invite some of them to share their stories, to tell us who they are?" Elena suggested, taking a step closer as if embracing the weight of their fears alongside them. "Not just the hardships, let us learn about their dreams, their passions, their humanity. Knowing each other personally can break down the walls of doubt." Another voice chimed in, this one softer, an older woman, her hands trembling slightly at her side. "And what if we run into trouble? What if they don't want to change? It's not easy to believe everyone has good intentions." "Change starts with us being willing to believe," Jack piped up once more. "It can be scary, but if we're there for each other, I'd be proud to take that risk. Like superheroes. We can be the ones who put our hearts out there." The crowd erupted into laughter, but beneath the laughter was the realization that he wasn't just being silly. There was a truth in his words, something pure and genuine that cracked through the heaviness of doubt. Elena seized the moment. Every time we open our hearts, we take a step toward building something amazing. Together. Each small act of bravery can inspire others to follow. Our stories can weave together like a beautiful quilt, each square unique but part of an even greater whole. Glancing around, she caught the eye of a father holding his daughter's hand, the child looking up at him with wide, trusting eyes. There it was again, light, growing, pulsing with the chance to connect. "What do you say?" she urged them, feeling the momentum shift ever so subtly in their direction. "Let us extend our arms and embrace the unknown, together. Who knows what beautiful stories are waiting to unfold." Elena's heart raced with the thrill of possibility. She could feel it, the change in the air like the calm before a summer storm, the electric energy building as if the community was ready to release all that pent-up tension. And just then, at the peak of that fragile hope, a voice rang out, a man from the back, unmistakable and firm, cutting through the hopeful chorus. And what if they come for us? What if welcoming them means inviting danger? A hush fell. The man stood tall, eyebrows knitted tightly, eyes dark with suspicion. The renewed atmosphere shifted again, dipping back into worry. Elena swallowed hard, bracing for how to respond to this looming shadow. Would her next words quell the rising tide of fear, or would they fuel it further? The precarious moment hung in the air, beckoning her to bridge the chasm once more. Elena felt the weight of the man's challenge settle over the crowd like a thick blanket. Silence filled the space, stretching long and tense. She took a breath, fighting the urge to falter at the sudden shift in energy. The faces before her were now a mixture of doubt and curiosity, and she knew she had to tread carefully. "Those fears are real," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "But what if the danger we imagine is just that, imagination? What if it's more about how we perceive others rather than who they actually are?" The burly man shook his head, his frown deepening. "You say that, but fear is based on history. We can't ignore what has happened before. How do we know we can trust them?" "What if," Elena replied softly, "we start by trusting ourselves to open our hearts first? We've all faced challenges. We've all had moments that shaped us. Maybe if we share those moments, we can find common ground." Jack stepped beside her, his youthful energy contagious. "Think about it. The best friendships are built on shared experiences. What if we learn that behind those fears, there are stories similar to ours? Imagine our kids playing together, hearing one another laugh." A young mother in the front row nodded slowly. "But how do we deal with the possibility of conflict? It's not just stories we're worried about." Elena glanced around the group, noticing the increasing intensity in the conversations. This was it, this was the moment she had hoped would come. "Conflict is part of any relationship," she said, heart pounding in tandem with the concerns swirling in the air. "But it's how we deal with that conflict that will define us. Let us choose dialogue over silence. Let us choose understanding over judgment." A small voice piped up from the back, and all heads turned to see a little girl with tousled hair, maybe 5 years old, peering shyly from her mother's side. She clutched a stuffed bunny, its fur worn and loved. I think we should just ask them," she whispered, her innocent gaze sweeping over everyone, her big blue eyes sparkling with sincerity. "If they come for us, we can just say hi and see if they want to play." A ripple of laughter broke out, and the heaviness of the moment eased. The little girl smiled, her cheeks flushed with pride at bringing some joy into the tense atmosphere. "That's it," Jack exclaimed, looking delighted. "Sometimes, it's just about being brave enough to say hello." Miraculously, the burly man's expression softened. He shifted his weight, and for a moment, it seemed he might speak again. But uncertainty still flickered in the corners of his eyes, an echo of the battle raging within him. Elena seized the opportunity, feeling the tide turn. "What if we invite them to our next community gathering? We can all share a meal. Let them tell us their stories just like we're sharing our concerns now. No pressure, no expectations. Just humanity." She saw nods of agreement ripple through the crowd, infusing her with renewed hope. The little girl's suggestion had planted a seed, and it was beginning to sprout. "Let us share laughs, stories, fears, and let us be a community that finds strength in vulnerability." The atmosphere shifted yet again, this time a spark igniting hope. The murmurs grew louder, ideas being exchanged. Elena could feel excitement but also the undertow of worry. The path was far from clear, but they were treading it together. Just when it seemed the conversation would spiral into more affirmations, the burly man spoke again. "And what if they say no?" His words cut through the growing chatter, a sudden reminder of the disconnect still present. Elena took a deep breath, ready to respond. What if we? Before she could finish, a loud crash echoed from the back of the gathering. A table knocked over, creating chaos in an instant. The crowd turned, startled, the previous discussions fading away. Elena's heart raced as she pivoted, piecing together what could have caused such a ruckus. What had just happened? And how would it complicate their fragile momentum? She squared her shoulders, determined to face whatever came next. It might be another challenge, one that could bring them closer or pull them apart. But the truth was, she wasn't willing to give up now. Not when they were on the brink of something meaningful. And there it was, a challenge she hadn't seen coming, one that could unravel the entire thread they had begun weaving together. Would this moment mark the unraveling or the binding of their community? Elena turned to see chaos erupting as a group of kids accidentally knocked over a table stacked with snacks and drinks. The clatter of plastic plates hitting the floor echoed like thunder, drowning out the delicate hope she had tried to cultivate. "Watch out!" shouted one of the older children, scrambling to pick up the scattered treats as everyone looked on in a mixture of shock and concern. Elena's heart sank. Panic spread through her chest. What if this defined the gathering? A moment of disarray sending them spiraling back into their fears. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm. "Hey! It's okay," she called out, raising her voice above the din. "Let us help them. There's plenty for everyone." Jack leaped into action, his youthful enthusiasm contagious. "I'll help," he said, rushing over to the mess of fallen snacks. One by one, others began to join him, reaching down to gather what they could, some laughing and others shaking their heads with incredulous smiles. As Elena watched, tension started to ease. The burly man from earlier was now kneeling alongside a couple of teenagers, their earlier dispute forgotten as they bonded over the task of cleaning up. It was heartening to see, and little by little, she felt the weight lift. A small voice piped up again. "Can we still have some chips?" The little girl with the stuffed bunny tugged at her mother's sleeve, her eyes wide with hope. Elena couldn't help but smile. "Of course. Let us make sure everyone gets something. We can even make it a game. Whoever finds the most snacks gets an extra cookie." Laughter erupted once more, threading through the crowd and building a bridge over the earlier uncertainty. In that moment, Elena understood something vital. It wasn't just about the meeting or the plans to bridge gaps. It was about how they reacted together in times of chaos. In those shared experiences, light could break through the darkness. Trust could grow in the most unexpected ways, but the laughter was interrupted by a sudden, unexpected voice yelling from the back. "What's the point of this anyway? We've got enough going on without inviting trouble." It was a man, older than the rest, arms crossed defiantly. The tension quickly shifted back into the air, the earlier warmth cooling once again. Elena felt her stomach drop. "But we're here to share," she began, but the man cut her off. "Share what? More fears? More worries? It's a nice thought, but how do we trust? How do we know it's safe?" His words landed like stones, heavy and unyielding. It was clear, the earlier hope had started to falter under the weight of his skepticism. Jack, sensing the shift, bravely stepped forward. What if we came together today, despite our fears? Just to see what could happen." A few murmurs of agreement echoed back. Whispered conversations ignited around the room as people weighed Jack's words against the handyman's harsh reminder of reality. Elena found her voice again, heart racing. "We don't have to ignore our history, but we can choose to move forward. We can take small steps together, one conversation at a time." Just then, a loud voice shouted from outside the gathering. "Hey! We heard there's a party going on." All heads turned to see a group of newcomers fabricating their laughter as they entered, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside. Elena's breath caught in her throat. This moment could change everything. Would the crowd embrace them, or would they react with the same skepticism? Before she could think, she stepped forward, arms open wide, a welcoming smile ready to bridge yet another divide. You all are just in time. We're sharing stories and snacks. Come join us. The crowd's reaction hung in the air, anticipation buzzing like electricity. Would this new group help solidify the experience, or create more fear within the community? The moment felt pivotal, the stakes higher than ever as they stood on the precipice of change. And something deep within Elena stirred. Was it hope? Or was it something more like trepidation? Determined to find out, she took a step forward, ready for whatever lay ahead. Elena looked at the newcomers, their bright smiles contrasting sharply with the tension hanging thick in the air. This was it, the moment to embrace change or retreat into safety. Could they welcome the unknown with open arms? Jack stood beside her, small but fearless, shining with the same gratitude and faith that had sparked their journey. Please, join us. She repeated, her voice ringing through the quiet crowd, needing this moment to forge new connections. We're exploring stories, sharing laughter, and getting to know one another. Everyone's welcome. Eyes turned, the weight of skepticism still present but wavering against the bright innocence embodied by Jack's joyful spirit. The newcomers exchanged glances, unsure. But one step forward changed everything. A woman with kind eyes took the lead. We heard there was a gathering. We want to be a part of it. Laughter erupted, and the mood shifted like a warm breeze flooding a chilly room. The crowd responded, slowly welcoming the newcomers into their midst. Chairs shifted, and people repositioned themselves to make room for fresh faces. It was a small yet powerful act of solidarity, a flicker of hope igniting in the community. See? Jack beamed, looking up at Elena. We're all friends now. His exuberance made the older crowd chuckle, and for that spark of moment, barriers cracked. Elena could feel her heart swell. They were in the process of forging a new collective identity. Yes. Friends. Just like Jack said. She echoed, feeling her courage amplify. Each of us has a story that contributes to who we are. Let us learn about each other. As the food spread out, warmth filled their hearts and laughter floated above the chaos from earlier. People began sharing their experiences, hesitant at first, but brave enough to open up. A mix of laughter and stories mingled around the table, growing stronger with every word spoken. The older man who had initially battled Elena now held a plate piled high with snacks. I might have been a bit too quick to judge, he admitted, an earnest shade to his voice. This isn't about their past, it's about how we can build our future together. His declaration surprised many but was met with nodding heads and encouragement as others echoed his admission. Elena felt relief wash over her as she looked around. The fear that had loomed only moments ago had transformed into curiosity, compassion, and, ultimately, connection. They were on the brink of something extraordinary, a change that echoed beyond this one gathering and pulsed deep within their town's core. Jack, go show them your superhero moves. Elena turned to him, and without hesitation, he grinned, his excitement radiating. Watch me. And he lunged with joy, flailing his arms like a child without a care in the world. Laughter bubbled among the group, a shared joy knitting them closer together. As everyone cheered and laughed, Elena realized something profound. Sometimes, all it takes to bridge gaps between hearts is a single courageous act of kindness. Jack had taught them that moments of connection can sprout from the simplest of gestures, sharing ice cream, showing friendship, embracing the love in every soul within their small community. The evening wore on, and as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, Elena felt a vibrant energy weaving through them all. The burly man who had once scowled at Jack now sat cross-legged with the little girl, munching on cookies. A few of the new arrivals were animatedly exchanging tales about their lives, each one revealing pieces of themselves that formed the mosaic of the community. Elena stood, heart brimming with gratitude, and raised a glass to the friends gathered before her. To new beginnings. And the strength we find when we choose to embrace love over fear. To new beginnings. They echoed back, voices ringing in unison, hearts open and daring to dream of a future united by compassion, and in that moment, a new chapter unfurled before them, one built on hope, authenticity, and a spirit willing to embrace anyone seeking to become part of something greater. The town was transforming, and so was the bond between Elena and Jack, one that would illuminate the darkest corners of the world. This was the dawn of a bright tomorrow, where differences ceased to divide and stories merged to become one. And just as the first stars began to twinkle in the indigo sky, they knew that they were no longer just individuals on separate paths. They were a community, tied together in a wonderfully complex tapestry, woven with threads of love and acceptance. As the music played softly in the backdrop, Elena turned to Jack, smiles and laughter washing over them. "You did it, Jack. You changed everything." He beamed up at her, filled with the kind of joy that only a child's heart can hold. "We did it together." And with that, she knew this was not just the end of their story but the promise of many more to come. Now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that inspire hope and transform lives. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover uplifting tales like this. Comment down below your reactions and feelings about the ending. We want to know how deeply this story resonated with you, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let's spread the love and light together.